Welcome. Welcome with peace, love. I'm Reverend Cardona. I'm here with Reverend Lisa Benton, Goddi Lisa.
Hey,
We are Miracles with a Twist. This is Miracles with a Twist Conversations. Back in the day, a couple years ago, Goddi Lisa and I used to meet regularly to have conversations around lessons that we were discussing during live streams. And then we went into a period of time where we were discussing mystics. And we haven't seen you for a while, so it's great to have you back. Hi.
It's great to be back, and I would just like to let you know that in honor of the fact that I happen to know that you are up in the great Northeast, I am wearing my Maine lobster or Northeast lobster, not Floridian lobster shirt in your honor.
That's right. It's we do have Floridian lobsters. We have lobster season, but yeah, I'm in Boston, and I'm staying at the historic and iconic Boston Park Plaza. It's really nice, but it's also very busy right now. So I'm in a little area that's sort of like business people hanging around, and so we might have some background noise. I actually wanted to meet up with you at the garden. There's two historic parks right down the street. One's called the Public Garden, the other one is called Boston Common, and they claim to be the oldest parks in the country. So I don't know about that because we in Florida have St. Augustine, which is supposedly the oldest city. So we'll have to look into that. And
I will research it. It's only a few minutes away from me.
we'll find
I will
out.
check it out.
But it's September 18th. And tonight is the full moon. And as you know, LMC Interfaith Ministries has been hosting since 1998 full moon gatherings outdoors. And since probably about 15 years ago, we met on the beach in Southeast Florida in Lauderdale by the sea. And Pam used to be a part of it every month too. She would always do pre-gathering yoga. And it was always, such a wonderful gathering. And I had to cancel because I'm here in Boston. And strangely enough, or coincidentally enough, the last time and the only other time I canceled a full moon event was in February, and I was in Boston. So you and I were talking about that the other day, about how, coincidences are things that happen in our lives all the time. And even though we don't always understand why they happen, they bring us to certain levels of, I don't know, comfort of being connected to the divine or whatever that's about. And the reason I was concentrated on it was because in addition to the coincidence of two full moons in Boston, was that you and I were having a conversation, as we usually do on a weekly basis, about how we integrate our spiritual practices as we face challenges in life, whether it's a fear, an upset, something that is occurring. And we had that conversation right after the political debate that is happening right now in our country. We have a lot of political divide and some issues. And as much as we were trying to keep away from politics, we kept defaulting back into a political conversation. And then we kept saying, well, let's look at this as we would want to look at it from a Course in Miracles guidance. So I think it was even later that same day, I was looking through some old live streams that needed to be updated because they didn't have titles or descriptions or whatever. And I'm just randomly picking them out. And I picked out a live stream from October 2020. And the specific conversation was about the 2020 debate. And you were there, and Paul was there, and Stephanie and Pam, and we were all talking about how we were trying to incorporate our spiritual practices into the fears, the concerns, the political divide of the time. And I had just been talking to you about coming to Boston, and then I saw the video, and I was like, what's with all these coincidences? It's like one right after the other. Like, what's that about?
Well, I don't think that we're talking coincidence, Rev. I think we are talking divine synchronicity. And maybe some people may think it's the same. I don't. I think synchronicity, that's what it is. And it gives us hope and it pushes us on.
Right, because no matter what it is, we're always going to look at it from a spiritual perspective. Like the
Yes.
whole Boston thing, there's some healing stuff that I was working on within myself, and yet having such a great time here now in this visit, versus the previous one, and then the conversation that we were having. So I can see where there's reasoning, there's spiritual perspectives that we can filter into everything and sprinkle onto everything. And so we were kind of blown away when we looked at those conversations, because I sent it to you right away. I was like,
Yeah.
had this conversation, and then I sent you the live stream, and it was like the same conversation. And so, like you're right, it's not coincidence, it's spiritual synchronicity, because we have to incorporate our spirituality into everything. And so we looked at the conversation that we had then, and it was almost the exact same thing. And I wanted to remind you of the lesson that we were discussing. It was lesson 274 from the workbook in A Course in Miracles. And that lesson says, today belongs to me, let me not fear. And in chapter 2, it says something to the effect, I'm going to paraphrase Jesus. It says something to the effect of, we want to be at peace, and we complain about our upsets. We engage in the things that upset us or hurt us or create fear. But what it says is, but that those are the things you keep doing. Those are the things that we keep focusing on. And so our spiritual practice has been to redirect our thinking. How can we bring a hopeful, helpful spiritual message into our own selves so that we can then live in the world, because we're not going to avoid it. We can't avoid the reality of whatever it is going on. And right now it happens to be some things that are challenging us around political unrest. And you specifically at that time were telling me about some upsets you had and how you dealt with them. If you want to share with us about the political rally situation that you had recently.
Yeah, I would. And thank you for allowing me to do this, because this is the first time that I have participated in a political rally. And you would think that with my age and everything I've been through, I've been through a lot of it, but I wasn't. And so I was fired up. I was fired up for my candidate. I was fired up with my compadres and all that. And we were going out on this little island between where roads meet, and we were going to wave our signs and we were going to cheer on our candidate. We were so excited, and I was just thrilled to be able to be a part of that. And I'm cheering along with everybody and waving my sign and everything. And we got mixed reactions. We got a lot of thumbs up, a lot of horn honkings, and we got a lot of less than kind responses. But I was just moving along, and out of nowhere, I was along the edge of the road, and this truck with a young man slowed down and kind of almost stopped, but just slowed down in front of me. And he had his window rolled down, and he called me the most vile name that I have ever not only been called, because I've been called some names, but that I've ever heard. And he was so young. And then he just took off. And I was totally taken aback. It knocked me right off my feet. It immediately sent me from this joyful, loving environment, even with a few, clunkers and stuff, into a state of fear. And I actually thought, is this going to get out of hand? Are there more? You know how ego is, it immediately attacks when you're joyful, any opportunity to attack. And so this rocked me. And I actually started thinking, should I leave? Is this going to get like this? Is this going to become something beyond something I can handle? And as I was thinking that, I heard our coordinator say, listen, we got a lot of diverse responses here. Anything negative, don't engage in it. Just throw kisses. And I immediately fell right back into my state of waving my banner and throwing kisses and just having the time that I had expected. But I really had almost left in fear, and who knows what kind of fear I would have taken away with me. But it was my, it was my principles of A Course in Miracles that I have been studying for years, that I know innately came in, spirit heard me, and boom, I was in, I was high, I was low, I was high.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we always have these choices.
we do.
So
We do. And it's a matter of how quickly we can shift back our consciousness and remember that we can reach for the more peaceful choice. But it reminds me of when you and Paul were living here, I mean, living in Southeast Florida, and you had a ministry, a cleanup ministry on the beach. And it was upsetting, you know, to see all the garbage, all the trash that was on the beach. And it was like, how do we do all this cleanup without getting into the judgment and the upset with all the people who are creating the trash? And so we came up with a mantra, which was take out trash, leave love behind. Take out trash, leave love behind. And you know what? We have to do that with our own minds sometimes. Take out the trash of our mind.
absolutely.
Take out the fear, take out the anger, take out the judgment and the condemnation, and leave love behind however we can, as best we can. I was recently listening to a podcast that you turned me on to called Turning to the Mystics with Jim Finley and Kristen Oates. And they're part of the Center for Action and Contemplation.
Center for Action and Contemplation.
Yeah,
Yep.
and action and contemplation, because we're still in the world, right? We're still in the world.
Yep.
And he was asking, Jim Finley was sort of doing a mock spiritual direction with Kristen Oates. And so he was sort of letting us, the listeners, know how a spiritual direction session would go. And at one point he said to her, how do you bring in your spiritual practices to your upsets? And what are some things that upset you? And I'm waiting for her to say things like, you know, political unrest or fight with my husband or whatever it was. Instead, she said, whenever I'm not loving, that's what upsets me. Whenever I do anything that's not loving. And it reminded me of A Course in Miracles. And I think it might be from the CE edition where Jesus is talking to Helen and he says, I was once like you. I was a man and I had issues. But he said, the difference is now I only want love. I only think love. I only come from love. And that's our practice. That's, you know, to rise higher, pray harder, love steadily, forgive readily, to keep coming back to that concept. And I know that you later on, after that political rally, you were really implementing your spiritual practices and I think doing really well. And then you and Paul went on vacation, and I'd like to hear that story too. You faced some fears while you were on the road.
Absolutely. I'm going to be painfully honest about it because I think it's really important, because I made huge steps that I never thought I would. I had initially, backing up just before the trip, I had attended the White Women for Kamala Zoom call. And I have been aware of my white privilege. I thought to a healthy extent. I learned a lot. I learned a lot from that Zoom call. It was just amazing. And just things that I could do that I didn't realize that I could do, using my white privilege. So this white privilege starts up we drove up to Maine and back, but we visited family and friends and kids and grandkids and all that. But we also visited places that we weren't familiar with, you know, restaurants and places like that, and just little stops. And I'm wearing my A Woman's Place is in the White House t-shirt, and because it was comfortable and I like it, and I was, you know, I have been all fired up. So we stopped at this restaurant in an area where I didn't see a lot of Kamala signs, And I was immediately went into fear because I'm wearing this t-shirt and I'm thinking, well, should I, climb under the seat and change my shirt or whatever? And I thought, you know what? I'll just put a hoodie on it. And if it doesn't look good, if it looks like there's going to be a problem, I'll just zip up my hoodie. Well, I actually ended up convincing myself and zipping up before I even went in. My shirt, my hoodie, and convinced myself that it's always so cold in restaurants when you're outside of Florida. No matter where you go, whenever you go in a place, you are, cold. So I actually covered up my issue. And so I'm sorry, but that made me think of it. It just actually came to me again because of my practice. Lesson 28 from A Course in Miracles.
Lesson 28 is, how can I see this differently?
Above all else, I want to see things differently.
Above all else, I want to see things differently. Right.
Yeah.
So whenever we're in the middle of our upset, we can ask for that guidance. Like, how can I see this differently? And
Yes.
I think part of the conversation we had was that as white privilege, you could easily cover up and not show your.
That's exactly right, Rev. And I should have said that because that is the thing that I came out with from the Zoom meeting, was that people of color do not get to go, okay, now where am I in wherever, and what color should I be today, and put that color on and walk out and find out where they're going to fit in the best. They don't have it.
Right.
And by that sweatshirt I handled it poorly. That's all I can say. And here I thought I was so enlightened, and I just did not use it. I had the opportunity to put a sweatshirt on and cover up what was frightening me. People of color don't have that. Right. And there's all kinds of people that don't have control over all kinds of things, but this is what I was specifically addressing. And so I didn't do a very good job at all by convincing myself that, well, it's probably cold in there anyway, so I'll just zip up. Well, shame on me, but I did. So I'd like to advance the story a little bit more because when we came back, I had gone directly to, not directly, we unpacked and all that kind of stuff, but ultimately when we returned from our trip, I had gone to headquarters to see if I could help out. And of course, I put on another Kamala shirt, and I go to headquarters and I do my my stuff for them. And I realized it's time for me to go pick up my husband at work. So I got in the car and I drove to work and to pick him up. He works in a strip mall, in a West Marine store. And he wasn't ready yet. His partner had stepped out and wasn't back yet. So I said, okay, well, I just need to take a walk up to Publix and get some bread that I forgot to get for dinner. So I start to walk out. Now, mind you, I'm a la carte t-shirt, no hoodie, no nothing. So the place, the store where my husband works, was directly across the street from where the initial experience happened with the kid. And so but I wasn't even thinking about that. I was thinking about going to Publix and getting bread and getting back. And so I walked out the door, and as I was walking out the door, I had already opened it and I started to turn to walk up to Publix, and I was like, oh no, I've got my Kamala shirt on. And immediately I thought, help me, Spirit, help me to see things differently. I could not see I just could not go run to the car and get a hoodie. I couldn't. And so I latched onto Spirit, I latched onto God, and we started walking up the walkway, and a tall, large man walked in front of me, and turned and said something to me like, I really like your shirt. And I was like, really? I was kind of taken aback because it was just across the street from where I had been attacked, verbally accosted. And he said, yes, and I really respect the fact that you're wearing it. And I said, well, thank you very much. And so Spirit, God, and I continued to walk up the sidewalk there. And then I ran, another man crossed my path. And these were both white men. And I think that's important to point out with what I'm talking about here. And he was with his daughter. And he said, way to go on the t-shirt. I love to see people wearing Kamala t-shirts. And I said, thank you so much. And he said, thank you. And so I continued to Publix and got my stuff. And I had a kind of a quiet little cashier and a real bubbly, gregarious kind of bagger. And I left the store, and I felt so good. There was no fear, no ready to get up and defend myself or any of that. It was just pure me, God, and Spirit walking back to the store. And it was like, oh my gosh, the holy instant, the holy instant.
Well, the only thing I want to challenge you on is when you said, shame on me, because the truth of the matter is that you were still noticing things, you were heightening your awareness, you were looking at how can I see this differently? And that's what spiritual practice is all about, is when we catch ourselves, right? Because we're not going to always be perfectly in line. We have spiritual amnesia, and when we do default to fear, we respond from that fear. We do things that are covered up. We cover ourselves up, whether it's figuratively or actually, literally. We cover up in all sorts of ways. And that's where our heightened awareness has to come in. We might cover up by spiritual bypassing. I know how to say, I know how to appear, I can have my head bowed and my hands in prayer, and then be on a spiritual retreat and get on my phone and call somebody and curse them out. So, where's the inner awareness? Where's the part where we go, oh, wait a minute, I need to see this differently. I need to do better, be better. And sometimes it is after the fact. Sometimes it's after the fact. We say, oh, you know what? Next time. And you did next time you did go without covering yourself up. And so the holy instant, I believe, is those moments where we can just feel so free from the ego, so free from our fears. And we're trying to extend the time we spend in holy instants, but they're really oftentimes, they're just moments in time. And it might be when you're in a deep meditation, or you're having a good conversation with someone and you're not concentrated on your fears and your upsets, but you're also noticing as time goes on that you're not engaging so much in negative conversation as far as politics or anything else. We're catching ourselves. I'm not just you, all of us, we're catching ourselves. We're adjusting our thinking. And, we have our spiritual practices for that, because those holy instants are those moments where we say, I'm not going to engage in fear, gossip, upset, attack, counterattack. Instead, let me reconsider my thoughts, my actions, my behavior, my interactions. How can I see this differently? I can see peace instead of this. I can be loving instead of this. And one of the other lessons that I made note of from that 2020, that coincidental 2020 conversation, was lesson 273. The stillness of the peace of God is mine. And what that means is that we always have access to it. We just don't always assert the skills and the knowledge and the ability that we have at all times. Because we might say, no, how can I be peaceful with all this stuff going on around me? When in fact, there's always that holy instant, and there's always that opportunity. And I said in that video, it's like if you have a bike, if somebody gives you a bike and you just leave it out on the patio, kind of like my bike is out on the patio. Like, how often do I have access? I have access to it, but do I use it? You know,
Right.
there's so many things we have access to on our spiritual path. To step outside in the middle of a spiritual disruption, right? Like you think you're being so spiritual and something disrupts you, but it's always the ego. It's always fear.
Always.
It's always fear based. And ultimately, and I know this is hard for many of us, it's ultimately just a dream. It's just an illusion, you know. And if we can sort of be outside looking in, you know, the course tells us to rise above the battlefield, you
Right.
know. And it's not just, you know, sometimes, you know, the lady said, oh, just throw them kisses. Somebody might see that as mocking, or you know, in a way, just inciting further upset.
Exactly.
If it's seen to be a mockery, but inside, it's really what happens on the inside.
Yes.
I had this quote, and I don't know who it was because I don't have access to it in the moment, but it just came to me in my memory, where someone said, the world out there is always trying to pull you. It's always trying to pull you. You know, there's things that are happening. There's conflict within relationships. There's so much stuff, political unrest, and it's out there. And what they said in this quote was, what's in here is what matters. Bring your hand back. But instead of having your hand extended to the world, bring it back here and say, I can see peace instead of this. How can I see it differently? Can I have a holy instant? Can I be in a place of peace right now, regardless of the outcome and regardless of the degree to which the ego is trying to take its hold on me through my fears. And you know, that's what this is all about today. Our conversation is about, you know, facing our fears, facing our challenges by remembering our lessons, remembering our spiritual practices. And when we do that, it is joyful, because instead of running into someone who mocked you or yelled at you in the publics, you had somebody who uplifted you and you felt joyful. And in that moment, you were in a holy instant, enjoying the person heart to heart, soul to soul. But if you didn't, if it was a different situation, I think at this point, instead of saying, oh, shame on me, you could say, you know what, thank you, God that I did not engage. I just walked right past someone who was hurting me, mocking me. I was able to maintain the silence within, the peace within, because it's there. It's there. Lessons 273 and lessons 274 are great lessons if anybody would like to go and look at them. It's about how we can look at what's available to us and not focus on the fear. It's hard sometimes. It's hard sometimes when we're really disrupted. And yet, even if we can take a moment away, that holy instant, if we could take a moment away and then be back in the world, you know, Boston's really busy. You know, these past few days, we're here for a week, 10 days, something like that. And it's fun. And, you know, I get a little homesick. I miss my cheekies. I miss my puppy, you know, but at the same time, like even in the most hustle bustle moment, there's something to look at that takes you into a place of awe or joy, connection, no matter where we are, no matter what we do, even if we're in a place where we're afraid and we want to cover up something, whether it's a t-shirt or just a way of being, whether it's, you know, just who we are in the world, you know. And I really appreciate that you and I are joined as spiritual partners and as prayer partners to continue bringing our spiritual practices and our Course in Miracles lessons into all that we do everywhere we go. And anyway, I'm proud of you and I appreciate you.
Thank you for that, because by saying that, and I'm not apologizing or not apologizing, but by saying that, I'm attacking myself.
Yes.
Which can immediately interrupt the holy instant and take and flow thing, you know, mess up the flow. I didn't attack myself. I just was in a bad place when I was wearing the jacket and in a good place when I wasn't. But thank you very much for reminding me of the importance of forgiving myself too, because we can't be open to the holy instant if we're beating ourselves up. So thank
Yeah,
you.
one of the cameos in the CE edition, Jesus and Helen are having a conversation, and he specifically says, I need you to forgive yourself because I need you. We are all needed. And as
Yeah.
long as we're in any level of condemnation, whether it's self-condemnation or external condemnation, then we're not purifying the vessel. We're not clearing our minds. We're not as ready as we want to be to do the rising higher and to be a presence of love and peace in the midst of things that are not peaceful or seemingly not peaceful. Because
Right.
everything unfolds as it needs to be for us to learn our own selves, to rise higher, to have that inner awareness. And you had that inner awareness when you noticed yourself zipping up. What else do we zip up? What else do we zip up in the course of a day? And so that's great opportunity for us to look within, to have self-inquiry, and to see what it is that we need to do better so we can be better in the world. And anyway, thank you. And I was wondering if you had some words of wisdom or a prayer that you can wrap up this time together.
Well, since we found ourselves defaulting to the 270 area in the lessons, I wanted to just share this one quote that I think really kind of sums things up for us, and then I would like to share a prayer with everyone.
Sure.
It's a special blessing comes today from him who is Father. Give us this day to him, and there will be no fear today because the day is given unto love. And that is from lesson 274.
Yes.
And then I'd just like to share this prayer with everyone. And this is from the workbook lesson 275. Your healing voice protects all things today, and so I leave all things to you. I need not be anxious over nothing, for your voice will tell me what to do and where to go, to whom to speak, and what to say to him, what thoughts to think, what words to give the world. The safety that I bring is given me. Father, your voice protects all things through me. Amen.
Amen. Amen to that. Well, today indeed belongs to love. Let's not fear. And LMC Interfaith Ministries, I know you told me, don't forget to say this. LMC Interfaith Ministries is a 501c3 public charity. I will put a link below in the comments for anyone who would like to feel they have been spiritually nurtured or feel like they would like to give us a donation. And like and subscribe, share these videos, comment, anything you'd like, and give us some ideas of what you'd like us to speak about next. And when we face the world, every time we wake up, Thich Nhat Hanh said, when you wake up, you have 24 hours ahead and you get to choose how you want to spend them. And I choose love today. I choose love, I choose peace. And I'm really glad to see you. And God bless you. God bless everyone who's with us today. The lessons that we refer to will be in the comment section.
Yep.
Yes. All right. Great. God bless you.
Enjoy the rest of your trip.
Peace and love.